Commander Velrotha stood before the great viewing window of her warship and watched the stars pass by like distant flames. She had commanded vessels for 40 cycles. She had killed enemies in close combat. She had earned every scar on her armored skin. Among the Kethvari people, she was considered a legend. Today, she felt only disgust. The message from the Galactic Concord still burned in her mind. They were sending her a human. A military advisor, they called him. A gesture of cooperation between allied species. Velrotha had requested no such thing. She had never wanted human assistance. She had studied their species for 3 long cycles, and her conclusion was absolute. Humans had no honor. She had watched recordings of their ancient wars. She had seen how they fought. They used tricks and traps. They hid behind walls and machines. They attacked from shadows and ran away when the enemy was too strong. They called it strategy. Velrotha called it cowardice. The Kethvari way was different. When a Kethvari warrior faced an enemy, they faced them directly. Blade against blade, eye against eye. Victory meant nothing if it came through deception. Death meant everything if it came with honor. This was the code that had guided her people for 10,000 cycles. Humans understood none of this. Her second officer approached and bowed his head. "Commander, the human transport has docked. The advisor is waiting in the receiving bay." Velrotha turned slowly. Her 4 eyes reflected the cold light of the stars. "Very well. Let us see what the Concord has sent us." She walked through the corridors of her ship with heavy steps. Kethvari warriors moved aside and saluted as she passed. They were tall creatures, covered in natural armor plates the color of dark stone. Their faces had sharp angles and their mouths held rows of small teeth. To humans, they probably looked frightening. Velrotha did not care what humans thought. The receiving bay was a large room with metal walls and bright lights. Standing in the center was a single figure. He was shorter than Velrotha expected. His skin was soft and pale, without any protective plates. He had no ceremonial scars, no warrior's crest, no visible weapons. He wore a simple gray uniform with a small symbol on the shoulder. When he saw Velrotha, he smiled. "Commander Velrotha," he said. His voice was calm and friendly. "I'm Marcus Cole. Thank you for having me aboard." Velrotha stopped 3 steps away from him. She looked down at him with all 4 eyes. "I did not request your presence, human. The Concord sent you without my approval." The smile did not leave his face. "I understand, Commander. I'm just here to help however I can." Help Velrotha. Let the word hang in the air like a bad smell. "Tell me, Marcus Cole, have you ever killed an enemy in combat?" "Yes." "Have you ever faced an enemy blade to blade with nothing between you but skill and courage?" Marcus thought for a moment. "Not exactly like that, no." Velrotha made a clicking sound with her mandibles. Among her people, it was a sign of contempt. "Then what use are you to me?" Marcus did not look offended. His expression remained patient. "I have experience in tactics and planning. I've studied many different kinds of warfare. Sometimes a fresh perspective can be useful." "Perspective." Velrotha turned away from him. "You may stay on this ship, human. You may observe our ways. But do not expect me to value your opinions. Your species knows nothing of true warfare." She walked toward the door. Behind her, she heard Marcus speak again. "Commander, with respect, I'd like to prove myself useful. Just give me a chance." Velrotha did not stop walking. She did not look back. 3 days later, Velrotha held a war council in the strategic chamber. Her senior officers gathered around a large holographic display showing enemy positions. The war against the Hollowed Syndicate had reached a critical point. The Syndicate was an empire of machines and corrupted organic beings. They consumed civilizations. They turned living creatures into slaves. And now they had turned their hunger toward Kethvari space. Velrotha pointed to a glowing point on the map. "This is Outpost Vern. The Syndicate has established a forward base here. We will attack tomorrow at dawn." Her officers nodded. This was the Kethvari way. Direct assault. Honorable combat. Glory or death. Then a voice spoke from the corner of the room. "Commander, may I offer a suggestion?" Velrotha turned. Marcus Cole was standing near the door. She had not invited him to this meeting. Somehow, he had found his way in any way. Speak quickly, human. Marcus stepped forward and looked at the holographic map. Outpost Vern receives supplies from a depot 3 sectors away. If we disable their supply lines first, the outpost will weaken within a week. We could take it with fewer casualties. The room went silent. Velrotha's officers looked at each other with confusion and anger. You suggest we starve them? Velrotha said slowly. You suggest we let warriors sit and wait while enemies die slowly without the chance to fight. I suggest we keep our people alive, Marcus replied. He met her 4 eyes without fear. A dead soldier can't win future battles. Every warrior we save today is a warrior who can fight tomorrow. Velrotha walked toward him until she stood close enough to smell the strange scent of human skin. This is exactly what I expected from your kind. You do not understand honor. You do not understand glory. You only understand survival. Survival matters, Marcus said quietly. Not to us. Velrotha pointed toward the door. Leave this council human. You have nothing of value to offer. Marcus looked at her for a long moment. Something passed through his eyes. It was not anger or fear. It was something Velrotha could not identify. Then he nodded once and left the room without another word. Velrotha turned back to her officers. We attack at dawn. Prepare your warriors. The council ended shortly after. As Velrotha walked back to her quarters, she thought about the human and his soft voice and his strange suggestions. She thought about his calm face when she insulted him. She thought about how he had not argued or shouted or tried to defend himself. He had simply accepted her judgment and walked away. Weak, she decided. Just like all humans. They bent when they should stand firm. They retreated when they should advance. They valued life when they should value honor. She would never understand such creatures. She entered her quarters and removed her ceremonial blade from its holder. The metal gleamed in the low light. Tomorrow, she would carry this blade into battle. Tomorrow, she would earn more glory for her people. The human could watch and learn what true warriors look like, or he could hide, like his species always did. Velrotha, he did not care which option he chose. The attack on Outpost Vern was a disaster. Velrotha led her warriors in a direct assault, just as she had planned. They charged with blades raised and battle cries echoing through the void. They fought with courage and skill and absolute dedication. They died by the hundreds. The Syndicate did not fight like honorable enemies. They sent wave after wave of drone ships. They used automated weapons that never tired and never missed. They did not accept warrior challenges or single combat. They simply killed, efficiently and without emotion. Until the Kethvari forces were forced to retreat, Velrotha returned to her warship with blood on her armor and shame in her heart. She had lost 400 warriors. The outpost remained in enemy hands. In the medical bay, she watched her wounded soldiers being treated. Some would live. Others would not. All of them had fought with honor. All of them had done exactly what she asked, and it had not been enough. Marcus Cole appeared beside her. He said nothing at first. He simply stood and watched the medical staff work. His face was serious, his eyes heavy with something that looked like sadness. You fought bravely, he said finally. Velrotha did not look at him. Bravery means nothing without victory. Your warriors followed you into impossible odds. They trusted you completely. That matters, does it? Velrotha turned to face him. They are dead, human. Dead warriors do not celebrate moral victories. Marcus was quiet for a moment. No, they don't. He walked away without offering any more words. Velrotha watched him go and felt something strange in her chest. It was not anger. It was not hatred. She did not know what it was. The weeks that followed brought more defeats. The Syndicate pushed deeper into Kethvari territory. They conquered colony after colony. They transformed captured soldiers into mindless servants of their machine empire. Every battle cost more lives. Every retreat brought more shame. Velrotha tried different approaches. She divided her fleet and attacked from multiple directions. She set ambushes in asteroid fields. She challenged enemy commanders to single combat. Nothing worked. The Syndicate did not respond to tactics built on honor. They responded only to mathematics. They had more ships, more weapons, more resources. They used these advantages without hesitation or mercy. Through all of this, Marcus Cole remained on the ship. He attended briefings. He studied battle reports. He asked questions about enemy movements and fleet compositions. He rarely spoke during war councils, and when he did, Velrotha usually dismissed his suggestions, but she noticed something. He was always watching, always thinking. His eyes moved across tactical displays like he was reading a story that others could not see. Sometimes he stayed awake for days, drinking bitter human beverages and filling notebooks with calculations. She wondered what he was looking for. One evening, she found him alone in the observation deck. He was staring out at the stars with his hands behind his back. He looked tired. He looked old, even though humans had short lives, and he was probably young by their standards. "Human," she said. "Why do you stay?" Marcus turned slightly. "What do you mean?" "This is not your war. The Kethvari have shown you no kindness. I have shown you no respect. You could request transfer to any other posting. Why do you remain here?" Marcus thought about the question. "Because you're fighting something important. The Syndicate doesn't just want to conquer. They want to erase. They want to take everything that makes organic life special and turn it into fuel for their expansion." He paused. "That's worth fighting against. Even if nobody thanks me for it." Velrotha studied his face. "You truly believe this?" "I do." She did not know how to respond. After a moment, she left without saying anything else. The message came 3 days later. Velrotha was on the command deck when her communications officer turned pale. "Commander," he said, his voice shaking. "The Syndicate fleet has changed course. They are heading for Vethmara." The name struck Velrotha like a physical blow. Vethmara was a sacred world. It was one of the oldest Kethvari colonies, home to temples and monuments that had stood for thousands of cycles. More than 2 million civilians lived there, including children and elders and families who had never held weapons. "How large is the enemy fleet?" she asked. The officer checked his instruments. His hands were trembling. "Over 3,000 vessels, Commander. Perhaps more." Velrotha had fewer than 200 ships remaining. Many of them were damaged. Many were running low on ammunition and fuel. Even if she gathered every vessel in the sector, she could not match those numbers. Time until arrival? 12 hours. 12 hours. Enough time to reach the planet? Not enough time to evacuate 2 million people? Velrotha closed her eyes. She had faced death many times. She had never feared it. But this was different. This was not just her death. This was the death of innocents who could not fight back. This was the death of history and culture and everything her people held sacred. "Set course for Vethmara," she ordered. "Maximum speed." The fleet moved. Marcus appeared on the command deck an hour later. He had dark circles under his eyes and a tablet computer in his hands. He walked directly to Velrotha, ignoring the officers who tried to stop him. "Commander, we need to talk." "Now is not the time, human. Now is exactly the time." He held up the tablet. "I've been studying the Syndicate's command structure. Their fleet operates through centralized control. One ship sends signals to all the others. Destroy that ship, and the entire fleet loses coordination." Velrotha looked at the tablet. It showed a diagram of the enemy formation with one vessel highlighted in the center. The command ship is surrounded by thousands of defenders. Reaching it is impossible. Not impossible. Marcus swiped to another screen. "There's a debris field near Vethmara, an old orbital station that was destroyed in the first wave of attacks. A small ship could use that debris as cover, thread through the defensive formation, and reach the command vessel. One small ship against thousands?" Velrotha shook her head. "That is not a strategy. That is a death sentence." Marcus met her eyes. "Yes, it probably is." She stared at him. Something in his voice made her pause. Something calm and certain and completely without fear. "You are suggesting that someone fly alone into the heart of the enemy fleet?" she said slowly. "Someone who knows they will not return." "I'm suggesting a chance," Marcus replied. "A small chance. But better than no chance at all." Velrotha looked at the tactical display. 3,000 enemy ships were moving toward Vethmara, like a swarm of hungry insects. 2,000,000 innocent lives waited to be consumed. "I will consider your words," she said. Marcus nodded once and stepped back, but his eyes stayed on her. Waiting for something she did not understand, Velrotha refused the plan. She stood before her senior officers and explained her reasoning. The human suggestion was not strategy. It was suicide. One ship could not reach the enemy command vessel. One pilot could not survive the journey. Even if by some miracle they succeeded, cost would be too high. Cathvari did not sacrifice individuals for uncertain outcomes. They fought together. They died together. This was the way. "We will defend Vithmara with everything we have," Velrotha announced. "We will evacuate as many civilians as possible. Those who cannot escape will fight beside us. We will make the Syndicate pay for every meter they advance." Her officers saluted. They accepted her decision without question. This was why they followed her. She made choices with confidence. And she never asked others to face dangers she would not face herself. The evacuation began immediately. Transport ships launched toward the planet's surface. Emergency shelters opened their doors. Families gathered their children and their precious belongings and ran toward the landing zones. But there were too many people and not enough ships. The mathematics were cruel and simple. Perhaps 500,000 could escape. The rest would stay. Velrotha walked through the command deck, watching her crew work. Every officer moved with purpose. Every station hummed with activity. These were good people. Brave people. They deserved better than this. Marcus Cole was not among them. She had not seen the human for several hours. At first, she did not think about it. She had more important concerns than tracking one soft-skinned alien. But as time passed, his absence began to feel strange. He was always present during crises. He was always watching, always thinking. Where had he gone? Then the alarm sounded. Unauthorized launch. The sensor officer shouted. "A small transport has left the hangar bay without clearance." Velrotha rushed to the tactical display. A single point of light was moving away from the fleet at high speed. It was heading toward the debris field near Vethmara. It was heading toward the enemy. "Identify that vessel," she ordered. The officer's voice became quiet. "It is a standard cargo transport, Commander. Minimal weapons. Minimal shields. The pilot identification shows." He paused. "It shows the human advisor, Marcus Cole." The command deck went silent. Velrotha felt something cold spread through her chest. She understood immediately what was happening. The human was not running away. He was running toward death. He was attempting the very mission she had rejected. She opened a communication channel. "Human Marcus Cole. Respond immediately." Static filled the speakers. Then his voice came through, calm and clear as ever. "Commander, I've uploaded the attack vector to your tactical systems. When you see the Syndicate formation break apart, begin full evacuation. You should have about 20 minutes before they reorganize. Human, I order you to return to this ship." "I'm sorry, Commander. I don't think I can do that." Velrotha gripped the edge of the console until her claws left marks in the metal. "This is madness. You cannot succeed. You will die for nothing. Maybe." Marcus's voice was steady. "But I have to try. That's all I can do. Try." "Why?" The word escaped her before she could stop it. "Why would you do this? We have shown you nothing but contempt. We have rejected you at every turn. Why would you give your life for people who do not even respect you?" There was a long pause. When Marcus spoke again, his voice was softer. "Commander, I've been a soldier for a long time. I've seen a lot of wars. I've learned that honor isn't about how other people treat you. It's about what you do when nobody is watching. It's about what you choose when there's nothing in it for you, Velrotha found that she could not speak. 2 million people are going to die if someone doesn't do something, Marcus continued. I'm someone. This is something. The math isn't complicated. The math says you will fail, probably. She could hear him smile through the static. But humans don't make decisions based only on probability, Commander. We make decisions based on what we can live with, and I couldn't live with myself if I didn't try. The small point of light on the display moved farther from the fleet. It entered the debris field and disappeared among the scattered wreckage. Elmon Velrotha said. Her voice came out strange and rough. I was wrong about you, maybe not. His voice was breaking up as distance increased. Just promise me something, Commander. If this works, don't waste it. Get those people out. Every single one, I promise. Thank you. The static grew louder. It's been an honor serving with you. Even if you never believed it, communication cut out. Velrotha stood frozen at the console. Around her, officers worked in stunned silence. No one knew what to say. No one had ever seen anything like this. A human was flying alone into the heart of an enemy fleet. A human they had insulted and dismissed and treated like a burden. He was going to die for them. Not for glory. Not for recognition. Not for songs or statues or honors. He was going to die because he believed it was right. Velrotha thought about everything she had learned about honor. She thought about the codes and traditions that had guided her people for 10,000 cycles. She thought about the stories she had been told as a child, stories of great warriors who died in beautiful combat, with their names on the lips of witnesses. Marcus Cole would have no witnesses. No songs, no glory. He would die alone in the cold dark between stars. The universe would not notice, and yet he went anyway. She did not understand. She could not understand. This was not honor as she knew it. This was something else. Something she had no name for. She watched his signal grow smaller and smaller until it vanished into the chaos of the debris field. Commander, her second officer said quietly, "What are your orders?" Velrotha took a deep breath. She straightened her spine and lifted her head. "Prepare all transport ships for immediate launch," she said. "The moment the enemy formation breaks, we begin full evacuation. Every ship, every shuttle, every vessel that can carry passengers. We leave no one behind, and if the formation does not break..." Velrotha looked at the tactical display. The massive Syndicate fleet was approaching Vethmara like a wave of destruction. Somewhere inside that wall of enemies, a single human was fighting against impossible odds. "It will break," she said. She did not know if she believed it, but she knew that Marcus Cole believed it, and somehow, in that moment, his belief was enough. The crew moved to obey. The transport ships powered up. The evacuation continued, and Velrotha waited, watching the enemy formation, searching for any sign of the man who had gone alone to face an army. For the first time in her life, she found herself praying to God she barely believed in, not for victory, not for glory, for one small human. Flying through the dark, the Syndicate detected the small transport almost immediately from her position on the command deck. Velrotha watched the enemy response unfold on the tactical display. Dozens of drone interceptors broke away from the main formation. They curved through space toward the debris field where Marcus Cole was hiding. More drones followed. Then more. Within minutes, hundreds of enemy ships were hunting one human in a cargo transport. Commander, her sensor officer said. "The enemy is flooding the debris field. They know someone is in there." "Can you track the human's position?" "Barely. The wreckage is interfering with our sensors. I can see him moving, but the signal keeps disappearing." Velrotha leaned forward. The debris field was a twisted graveyard of metal and stone, the remains of an orbital station that the Syndicate had destroyed weeks ago. Giant pieces of hull plating floated between shattered support beams. Frozen clouds of gas and dust filled the gaps. It was chaos, confusion, a maze with no map. For the Syndicate drones, it was a hunting ground for Marcus Cole. It was his only hope. The first wave of interceptors entered the debris field in tight formation. They were fast and precise. machines without fear or hesitation. Their weapons powered up, ready to destroy anything that moved. Then something unexpected happened. On the tactical display, Velrotha saw Marcus's transport emerge from behind a massive section of hull plating. It moved directly toward the lead interceptor, engines burning at maximum power. The interceptor opened fire. Lasers cut through space in bright lines. The transport twisted sideways at the last moment. The lasers missed by meters. The transport did not slow down. It flew directly past the interceptor, close enough to scrape paint, and disappeared behind another piece of debris. Someone whispered. The Syndicate drones spun around and gave chase. They spread out to cover more area, searching for their target. But the debris field was too dense, too chaotic. Every time they locked onto the transport, it vanished behind cover. Every time they predicted its path, it changed direction. Marcus was not trying to outrun them. He was using the wreckage as a weapon, letting the debris block shots and confuse sensors. He was flying like a creature possessed. Making decisions faster than the machines could calculate, Velrotha had never seen anything like it. He's actually surviving, her second officer breathed. How is he surviving? Another wave of drones entered the field. The space became crowded with enemies. Laser fire filled the darkness, turning the debris into a storm of explosions and shrapnel. A piece of wreckage the size of a house detonated. 20 meters from Marcus's transport, still he flew forward. The transport took its first hit 10 minutes into the chase. A glancing blow that tore a hole in the rear hull. Warning lights must have been screaming in the cockpit. Emergency systems must have been failing. But the transport did not stop. It did not slow down. It kept pushing deeper into the enemy formation. Velrotha opened a communication channel, desperate to hear his voice. Marcus, report your status.
Static.
Then, through the noise, fragments of words, till moving shields failing, doesn't matter, can see the target, you are damaged. Retreat while you still can. Negative, too close. Now, can't stop. The signal broke apart into static. On the tactical display, the transport emerged from the debris field. Ahead of it lay the main body of the Syndicate fleet. 3,000 ships arranged in precise formations. And in the center, protected by layer after layer of defenders, sat the command vessel. It was massive. Dark metal and glowing light stretched across kilometers of space. Cables and antennae extended from its hull like the limbs of some mechanical spider. This was the brain of the Syndicate fleet. Every drone, every interceptor, every weapon received orders from this single source: destroy it. And the army would become blind, but reaching, it seemed impossible. The Syndicate responded to the threat with overwhelming force. Drones converged from every direction. Weapons platforms turned their cannons toward the small transport. The space between Marcus and his target filled with fire. His transport shuddered as another shot hit home. Then another. Hull breaches opened along the port side. The engine output dropped by half. Warning indicators flashed red across Velrotha's display, showing the damage in brutal detail. The transport kept flying forward, Commander, her sensor officer said, his voice shaking. His weapon systems are offline. He has no way to attack the command vessel. Velrotha felt her blood turn cold. She understood what Marcus was planning. He had known from the beginning that his weapons would not be enough. He had never intended to shoot the command vessel. He intended to become the weapon himself. The transport accelerated. Damaged engines screamed with effort. Drones swarmed around it, tearing away pieces of hull with every passing second. The craft was dying, breaking apart in real time, but it had momentum. And momentum was enough. Velrotha watched in silence as the small transport broke through the final defensive line. Interceptors raked it with fire. Pieces of the ship fell away like leaves in a storm. What remained was barely recognizable as a vessel anymore. It was a missile now. A missile with a human pilot at its heart. The command vessel's own weapons opened fire. Heavy cannons poured destruction into the approaching wreck. But it was too close. Moving too fast? The guns could not track a target that was already. On top of them, The transport struck the command vessel's primary signal array at full speed. The explosion was bright enough to blind sensors across the sector. A ball of fire and metal expanded outward from the impact point, tearing through the delicate communication systems that controlled the entire Syndicate fleet. For one heartbeat, nothing happened. Then the drone formations began to fall apart. Ships that had moved in perfect coordination suddenly lost their purpose. Interceptors drifted aimlessly. Weapons platforms stopped firing. The great machine army that had threatened to consume Vethmora became a collection of confused, directionless components. Commander, the sensor officer shouted, "The enemy formation is breaking. They have lost central control." Velrotha did not celebrate. She did not cheer. She simply stared at the expanding cloud of debris where the command vessel's signal array had been. Somewhere in that cloud were the remains of a cargo transport. Somewhere in that cloud were the remains of Marcus Cole. He had done it. Against impossible odds, against mathematics and logic and every prediction, he had done what he promised. He had given them a chance. Now it was her turn to keep her promise. "All transport ships launch immediately," she ordered. Her voice was steady, but something inside her felt broken. "Begin full evacuation of Vethmera. Every civilian, every soul. No one gets left behind." The fleet moved. Transports descended to the planet's surface. Shuttles loaded passengers at maximum capacity. The confused remains of the Syndicate fleet drifted uselessly while the Kethvari worked. They had 20 minutes before the enemy would reorganize. Maybe less. Velrotha stood at the viewing window and watched the evacuation proceed. Behind her, officers coordinated rescue efforts with desperate efficiency. Below, millions of people were being saved, and all she could think about was one human who had flown alone into the dark because he believed it was right. She had called his species cowards. She had said they had no honor. She had been wrong about everything. The evacuation succeeded. Every transport, every shuttle, every vessel capable of carrying passengers made the journey to Vethmara's surface and back. Families that had prepared to die found themselves boarding ships instead. Children who had cried in fear fell asleep in the arms of parents who could not believe they were alive. 2 million souls rose from the planet and escaped into the safety of friendly space. The Syndicate fleet eventually reorganized. But by then, there was nothing left to consume. Vethmera stood empty. Its temples and monuments remained standing, waiting for the day when its people might return. The enemy had conquered a planet, but they had not claimed a single Kethvari life, all because of one human in a cargo. Transport 30 days after the evacuation, Velrotha took her personal shuttle into the debris field alone. Her officers had advised against it. The area was still dangerous, filled with unstable wreckage and scattered Syndicate drones that had not yet been neutralized. But she did not care about danger. She needed to find something. The debris field was vast and chaotic. Twisted metal floated in clouds of frozen gas. Fragments of the destroyed command vessel mixed with pieces of older wreckage. The scale of destruction was almost beautiful, in a terrible way. Velrotha searched for hours. She moved through the debris with her shuttle sensors working at maximum range, looking for any trace of the cargo transport. Most of it had been vaporized in the impact. There would be nothing recognizable left. No body to recover, no memorial to build, but she kept looking anyway. Near the edge of the field, her sensors detected a small metallic object. It was a piece of hull plating, roughly the size of her hand. The metal was scorched black and bent at strange angles. But on one surface, barely visible beneath the damage, she could see a fragment of paint, gray paint. The same gray as the cargo transport's hull, Velrotha brought the fragment aboard her shuttle. She held it in her clawed hands and stared at it for a long time. This was all that remained of Marcus Cole. This twisted piece of metal was the only physical proof that he had ever existed. She took it back to her warship. The Kethvari Hall of Eternal Warriors was an ancient institution. For 10,000 cycles, the names of great heroes had been inscribed on its walls. Each name represented a warrior who had shown exceptional courage, skill, and honor in combat. Each name was accompanied by a story of their deeds. Carved in stone for future generations to remember, no non-Kethvari had ever been inscribed in the hall. Velrotha transmitted Marcus Cole's name personally. She included a detailed account of his actions at Vithmera. She requested that he be granted the highest honor her people could offer. The response came within hours. The Council of Elders demanded an explanation. A human? In their most sacred hall? This was unprecedented. This was an insult to tradition. This was unacceptable. Velrotha replied with a single question. What is more honorable? To die in glory with witnesses singing your name, or to die alone in the dark, because strangers deserve to live? The council debated for 2 days. In the end, they approved her request. Marcus Cole became the first human ever inscribed in the Hall of Eternal Warriors. His name was carved alongside legends who had shaped Kethvari history. Velrotha did not attend the ceremony. She did not feel the need. The honor was not for her sake. It was for his. And she suspected that Marcus would not have cared about ceremonies anyway. 1 month later, new human advisor arrived on her ship. Her name was Sarah Chen, and she was young, with bright eyes and nervous hands. She stood in the receiving bay exactly where Marcus had stood, waiting to be judged. Velrotha met her at the airlock. She performed the warrior's welcome, a greeting reserved for honored guests and fellow soldiers. Sarah seemed confused by the gesture. "Commander," she said carefully, "I was told that Kethvari don't respect humans." "I was warned that this assignment would be difficult." Velrotha placed a clawed hand on the young woman's shoulder. "I was wrong," she said simply. "I believed your species had no honor. I believed you were cowards who valued survival above principle." "I was wrong about everything," Sarah blinked. "What changed your mind?" "A man named Marcus Cole." "Did you know him?" "Only by reputation. He was famous in our military academies. They called him the Ghost because he never took credit for anything." Velrotha felt something twist in her chest. Of course, he had not taken credit. Of course, he had worked in shadows without seeking recognition. That was who he was. "Come," she said, guiding Sarah toward the bridge. "There is something I want to show you." They walked through the corridors of the warship. Kethvari warriors nodded respectfully as they passed. Some of them looked at Sarah with curiosity, but none showed contempt. The command deck was busy with activity. Officers monitored stations and coordinated fleet movements. In the center of it all stood the main viewing window, looking out at the endless stars. But that was not what Velrotha wanted to show her on the wall beside. The captain's chair. A small fragment of metal hung from ceremonial hooks. It was mounted alongside ancient banners and sacred weapons, treated with the same reverence given to the most precious relics. "That is a piece of his ship," Velrotha explained. "It is all we could find. I keep it here to remind myself of what I learned." "What?" Sarah stared at the fragment. Her eyes grew wet. "What did you learn?" Velrotha turned to face the viewing window. The stars stretched endlessly before them, cold and beautiful and indifferent. "I learned that honor is not about how you die," she said slowly. "My people have always measured honor by glory, by witnesses, by songs that carry your name through generations. We believed that dying beautifully was the highest purpose a warrior could achieve." She touched the whole fragment gently with one claw. Marcus Cole died without witnesses. He died without glory. No one sang his name in the moment of his death. The universe did not notice when he was gone. By every measure my people have used for 10,000 cycles, his death was meaningless. "But it wasn't meaningless," Sarah whispered. "No." Velrotha turned back to face her. "It was the most meaningful death I have ever witnessed. Because it was not about him. It was never about him. He flew into that enemy fleet because 2 million strangers deserved to live. He gave everything, expecting nothing in return." She placed both hands on Sarah's shoulders, a gesture of respect among her people. "Your species does not lack honor. Sarah Chen, you simply carry it differently than we do. You carry it quietly, hidden inside your hearts, until the moment when it matters most. And then you show the universe what you were truly made of." Sarah wiped her eyes. "Thank you, Commander. For honoring him, I did not honor him." Velrotha looked once more at the burned fragment of metal on the wall. He honored us, all of us, by believing we were worth dying for. She returned to her captain's chair and began reviewing fleet reports. The war against the Syndicate continued. More battles lay ahead. More sacrifices would be required, but something had changed in Velrotha. Something fundamental. When she looked at her human allies now, she no longer saw weakness. She saw a different kind of strength. A strength that did not announce itself. A strength that waited in silence until the moment it was needed. She had spent her entire life believing that honor meant facing death without fear. Marcus Cole had taught her that honor meant facing death because something mattered more than your own survival. It meant choosing to help when no one would ever know. It meant giving everything for people who might never appreciate the gift. Velrotha had been wrong about humans. She would spend the rest of her life making sure no one else made the same mistake.